the pandemic, teenagers vaping was one of the big concerns for parents and school district leaders. In fact, we held a town hall about this in November 2019, talking with experts on all sides of the issue. Tonight, we're checking back in. How has remote learning impacted the rate of teens vaping? Tony Black.
Pre-pandemic, there were situations where students were suspended.
Schools across New York faced an epidemic before the COVID-19 pandemic. It happened in the bathrooms, the halls, the classrooms of the Central Square Central School District.
We absolutely experienced it, as did, most school districts at that time.
An epidemic they have confiscated proof of. Students using vapes while on school property. Superintendent Tom Culabufo says while a majority of users were high schoolers, they had middle school students caught with them too.
There was a variety of different flavors that we saw: cotton candy, watermelon, grape.
The district made an effort to educate students on the effects of using vaporizers and the potential nicotine they may contain while in person. That was before the pandemic, when students were under the supervision of the school for 8 hours a day.
It allowed us to have eyes on students.
That changed when they abruptly had to switch to remote education in March of 2020. The only supervision from the school was through a screen.
And not being in school, it would be extremely hard to be able to monitor that, because all a student would have to do is just move off camera or shut off the camera.
As students get ready to go back to school for full in-person learning, the district is preparing for potential bad habits reinforced while away from the classroom. Some of the federal relief money Central Square will get will go towards hiring more drug and alcohol counselors at the middle and high schools and offering more hours to help.
But we're going to have to work twice as hard because the kids have been home for so long.
Throughout the course of the pandemic, the school district had 148 COVID cases from students. The potential long-term effects from COVID are what concern the superintendent.
The last thing we want our students doing now is doing anything to their body, especially their lungs.
The National Youth Tobacco Survey released in January found tobacco use by high school and middle school students dropped in 2020 by 1.73 million, but they say it's still a public health issue. In May of 2020, the state banned the sale of flavored nicotine vapor products, something Andrew Osborne believes has done more harm than good.
It is enabling our industry that was regulated and IDing minors, and it's turned it over to the black market.
He owns a vape shop in Buffalo and is also the vice president of the New York State Vapor Association. He thinks it's easier for kids to get vapes now than it was before the ban.
Every corner store, every smoke shop, every bodega, they don't have vapor licenses and they don't care.
The superintendent also has concerns that the ban may not be doing all it meant to.
All you have to do is just, Google flavored nicotine and you can order them online.
The superintendent says these lessons are best taught in the classroom.
Nothing beats actually having parents come in and students come in to those sessions.
Well, first of all, they say you're not alone, no matter what you're feeling, whether empowered or upset. They say everyone's scenario is different, but there are agencies across the region that can help you through anything. They also say this is not the first high-profile case that has triggered reaction. As lawmakers handle Governor Cuomo's sexual harassment investigation and impeachment proceedings, they say they're conscious of other victims who are watching.
Many of those people have had intense and anxious reactions as a result of this accusation against the governor. It is in the best interests of the people of the state of New York to move expeditiously.
Maggie Frank, executive director of Wellspring, a sexual assault and domestic violence service agency in Saratoga County, says anxiety is a very real and genuine reaction.
When someone in any position of power is perhaps committing an act, it can bring up the vulnerabilities that someone who's been victimized has felt before.
She says everyone's reaction may be different, and no reaction is right or wrong.
Some people may hear these stories and go back to the time that they had a similar experience, or there may be times that someone had a situation and moved on and kind of thought they were over it. And now it never really got fully resolved or processed, and that's bringing them back to it.
And for some, this may empower them to speak out and share their stories or take action. If that's the case, she recommends you call an agency like Wellspring to talk about your rights and options.
Talk you through the impacts you think might happen in your life, or how long ago and far away it was, how it might affect your relationships you're in now, your friends, your family.
Frank compared the governor's high-profile case to the Me Too movement.
We heard very strong voices of women who we would think had power, speaking about how powerless they felt in situations with a superior. And what we heard from the clients that were calling us at the time was some of them were just overwhelmed because everywhere they turned, they were being bombarded with information about this. They couldn't get away from it.
And she says discussing sexual harassment and abuse also raises awareness, and we're taking positive steps for social change.
The very fact that we are talking about these things would not have been talked about maybe 20 years ago. They would have been swept under the carpet. They would not have been on the evening news tonight. But they're only as good. Those policies and trainings are only as good as how we act upon them.
Megan, hundreds of thousands of people will walk through these gates in just 11 days for the state fair. There's no capacity limit right now, and more people means more concerns of potential exposures for these town leaders. The New York State Fairgrounds are pretty quiet now, but preparations are underway at the site in Geddes for the 18-day event starting in just 11 days.
I would like to see it happen.
Geddes Town Supervisor Jerry Albrigo does want to see the event kick off this year, but has concerns as hundreds of thousands of people prepare to come to the area.
In the town, I think the numbers, from what I've been reading, have been very low. But now you're bringing in folks from all over the state, even outside of the state.
As cases increase and the Delta variant spreads, one of his concerns is the fair would have to shut down before it's supposed to.
Because of them tracking the spread of the disease.
There's no capacity limit on the event at this moment. The town supervisor would like to see some changes before the start, like requiring masks for all.
Controlling the number of people and spacing is another thing.
He says the exposure in the town increases greatly for everyone.
No matter how you phrase it, it's more risk with the more people.
Geddes Police Chief John Arfall Jr. says more people means a greater chance of exposure for his 17 officers. While most are vaccinated, he says there's still a risk.
The officers always have a mask on them, in their vehicle, in their bag, in their vest, ready to go.
Just days after the fair ends, school starts. The town supervisor has confidence in the district's preparations, but is still concerned about the children who can't get a vaccine.
This thing can get out of control very easily, and even with younger children.
When the governor announced the fair would operate at 50% capacity with masks for everyone, the statewide positivity rate was less than what it is now with neither of those restrictions in place.